Hey guys, glad you could join us tonight. We're about to set out on one of history's most legendary journeys, the Silk Road. We picture a romantic adventure, but the brutal reality was a perilous year-long relay race where merchants faced scorching deserts, freezing mountains, and the constant threat of bandits, all for a bolt of precious silk. But first, it's time to end your own day's journey. Find your most comfortable position, let your body sink into your mattress, and get ready for a long night's rest. If these stories from the ancient world help you find your sleep, a simple like is always appreciated, and it's always fascinating to see our global caravan, so be sure to tell us in the comments where you're listening from tonight. Ready? Take a slow, deep breath and let it go. Good. We're travelling to the great crossroads of the world, a place of vibrant cities and desolate wilderness. The year is 755 AD. You are a merchant in the magnificent city of Samarkand, and you are about to gamble your fortune and your life on a single bolt of silk. You stand in the heart of the world, the magnificent city of Samarkand. It is a jewel of the Sogdian civilization, a vibrant, multicultural oasis at the very centre of the great web of trade routes that connect the east and the west. The city is a sensory explosion. The great Registan Square is a chaotic symphony of a dozen different languages: Sogdian, Persian, Arabic, Turkish. The air is thick with the smells of roasting lamb, of exotic spices from India, of the leather from the saddle makers' workshops, and the sweet perfume of the city's famous gardens. For the past 6 months, you have been preparing. Your journey west, from your home in the Tarim Basin, was a profitable one. You sold your cargo of jade and spices for a handsome sum, but a merchant's life is one of constant motion. Now you must prepare for the even more arduous journey back east. You are not a romantic adventurer. You are a pragmatic businessman, and this is a high-risk business venture. You spend your weeks in the city's great bazaar, reinvesting your profits. You purchase the goods of the West that are so highly prized in Tang China. You buy exquisite glassware from Syria, fine woolen textiles from Persia, and intricate metalwork from the craftsmen of this very city. Each purchase is a calculated risk, a speculation on the ever-shifting tastes of the Chinese elite. But your cargo is only one part of your preparation. Your most important investment is in security and logistics. You hire a dozen grim-faced mercenary guards, veterans of the desert routes, who look as tough and unforgiving as the landscape itself. You purchase a string of 20 Bactrian camels, the 2-humped shaggy beasts that are the heavy-duty transport trucks of the Silk Road. You inspect each one yourself, checking their teeth, their feet, the health of their humps, which are the great stores of fat that will fuel them across the barren wastelands. A sick camel is a death sentence for your cargo, and possibly for you. You are not a traveller. You are a logistics manager, and your company is this small, fragile, and very expensive expedition. A few days before your departure, you join your caravan outside the city gates. The scene is one of organised and very smelly chaos. A great caravan is not a single merchant's enterprise. It is a temporary, mobile city of several hundred camels and just as many men, all banding together for mutual protection. You, a private merchant, will travel alongside a great state-sponsored embassy from the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, carrying tribute to the Tang Emperor in Chang'an. Travelling with an official embassy offers a greater degree of security. The caravan is a microcosm of the entire world. There are other merchants like yourself. There are the rough, sunburnt camel drivers, the Sarwans, whose knowledge of the animals is almost mystical. There are the mercenary guards, your own and others. There are pilgrims, Buddhist monks on their way to the holy sites in India, and Nestorian Christians heading to their small communities in the east. It is a slow, noisy, and argumentative city on the move. You find your designated place in the long, snaking line. The caravan master gives a great shout, and with a collective groan from 100 camels, the great journey begins. Your first great obstacle is not a desert, but a mountain range. The Pamirs, the roof of the world. To get from the lush plains of Sogdiana to the Tarim Basin and the deserts beyond, you must cross this immense, jagged wall of rock and ice. The journey is a brutal vertical climb. The caravan leaves the gentle rolling hills behind and enters a world of narrow, winding valleys and treacherous mountain passes. The air grows thin, cold, and sharp in your lungs. Life on the trail becomes a grueling routine. You rise before dawn, the cold so intense that your breath freezes in the air. You choke down a miserable breakfast of stale flatbread and dried apricots. You load your camels, their groans of protest a constant complaining chorus. And then you walk. You walk all day, leading your string of camels up the steep rocky paths. The progress is agonizingly slow. You cover maybe 10 miles on a good day. The physical toll is immense on both man and beast. The high altitude leaves you with a constant pounding headache. The cold is a physical pain, a deep, unshakable chill that seeps into your very bones. You wrap yourself in every layer of wool you have, but it is never enough. The camels, though bred for hardship, suffer just as much. Their soft, padded feet are not made for these sharp, rocky paths. You watch as one of your own camels, a fine, strong beast you paid a fortune for, slips on a patch of ice and falls, its leg breaking with a sickening crack. You have no choice but to put it out of its misery and abandon its precious cargo. It is a devastating financial loss and a grim reminder of the unforgiving nature of this terrain. At night, the caravan stops at a pre-established fortified caravanserai, or a simple windswept clearing. A great circle of camels is formed, their bodies a living wall against the biting wind and any potential predators. You huddle around a small, smoky fire made from the dried dung of the camels, the only fuel available at this altitude. You eat your meagre dinner, and you try to sleep, the thin air making your rest shallow and fitful. You are not an adventurer. You are a survivor, and you are only at the beginning of your journey. After what feels like an eternity in the frozen, oxygen-starved hell of the high mountains, you begin the long, slow descent. The air grows thicker, warmer. The landscape changes from barren rock and ice to sparse, hardy vegetation. And then you see it, spread out in the vast, dusty plain below you, a splash of impossible green. It is the great oasis city of Kashgar. The sight of it, the promise of a real bed, a hot meal, and a moment of rest, is so beautiful it almost brings you to tears. Kashgar is the great halfway house of the Silk Road, the place where the western routes from Persia and the eastern routes from China all converge. It is a teeming, vibrant city, a melting pot of cultures. As you enter its gates, you are assailed by a familiar and welcome sensory overload. The bazaar is a riot of colour, of smells, of languages. You see Uyghur Turks, Han Chinese, Sogdians like yourself, and even a few fair-haired Tocharians. But your first priority is business. An oasis city like Kashgar is not a charity. It is a business, and its primary product is survival. You must pay for everything. You pay for the water for your camels. You pay for the space in the caravanserai, the great fortified inn where the caravans rest. You pay a tax to the local ruler for the privilege of entering his city, and a further tax on any goods you wish to sell. The bureaucracy of the Silk Road is as much of an obstacle as the mountains. You will spend several weeks here, resting your animals, repairing your equipment, and, most importantly, trading. This is the reality of the Silk Road. It is a relay race. You may not take your Syrian glassware all the way to China. You might find that a merchant here in Kashgar, who specializes in the Chinese trade, is willing to pay you a good price for it now. You sell some of your Western goods, and you use the profits to buy local specialties. Fine jade from the nearby mines of Khotan, or strong, resilient horses that are highly prized in the East. It is a constant process of risk management, of adapting your inventory to the demands of the next leg of your journey. You have survived the mountains. Now you must prepare for a different and in many ways more terrifying ordeal. You must prepare to cross the great desert, the Taklamakan. Its name, in the local dialect, means that which you go into and never come out of. It is a vast, merciless ocean of sand, and it is your next great enemy. The preparations are meticulous, and they are a matter of life and death. First, you sell the camels that have been weakened by the mountain crossing and buy fresh, strong animals. You spend a small fortune on supplies. You buy sacks of grain and dried fruit, but the most important commodity is water. You equip your caravan with dozens of large leather water skins, and you spend the 2 days before your departure filling them from the city's wells. This is the water that must sustain you and your animals on the long, dry crawl from one oasis to the next. Most importantly, you hire a local guide. To attempt to cross the Taklamakan without a man who knows its secrets is suicide. He is a weathered, silent man who navigates not by maps, but by the subtle language of the sand, the shape and colour of the dunes, the direction of the prevailing wind. He knows the location of the few, scattered, and often half-buried wells that are the only thing that makes the journey possible. On the morning of your departure, the caravan gathers at the eastern gate of Kashgar. A final prayer is said. The mood is sombre, tense. You are about to step off the edge of the world into a landscape that does not tolerate mistakes. You look at the endless expanse of sand that stretches out before you, shimmering in the heat. It is beautiful, and it is terrifying. The sea of death is waiting. Life in the desert is a slow, walking torture. The sun is a merciless, white-hot enemy. The heat is a physical presence, a heavy, suffocating blanket that drains the life from you. You wrap your head in a long turban to protect yourself from the sun and the biting, wind-blown sand. Your world shrinks to the small, plodding space around you. The rhythmic, swaying gait of the camel in front of you. The soft crunch of its feet on the sand, the creak of the leather harnesses. You travel in the cooler hours of the early morning and the late afternoon, resting during the unbearable heat of midday in the scant shade of your tents. But the physical hardship is only part of the ordeal. The desert is a place of profound psychological pressure. The landscape is a monotonous, unchanging sea of sand, and it is easy to lose your sense of direction, your sense of time, your sense of self. The silence is absolute, a ringing in your ears that is broken only by the wind and the soft tinkling of the camel bells. And the desert is not just empty, it is haunted. Your local guide tells you the stories, the cautionary tales that are passed down from one generation of travellers to the next. He tells you that the desert is home to demons and malicious spirits who prey on the unwary. They say these spirits can imitate the sounds of the caravan, the tinkling of the camel bells, to lure a man who has strayed from the group to his death. They say they can whisper your name in the voice of your mother or your wife, drawing you off the path and into the empty wastes. Whether these stories are true or not, they speak to a deeper truth. The desert is a place that preys on your mind. You begin to see things in the shimmering heat haze. You hear things in the sighing of the wind. The constant fear of running out of water, of losing the trail, of a sudden blinding sandstorm. It all begins to wear you down. And the threat of bandits is very real. The desert is the perfect hiding place for the desperate men who prey on the slow-moving, wealthy caravans. Every distant shape on the horizon is a potential threat. You are a small, fragile island of life, floating on an ocean of death. After weeks in the desert, your water is running low, your animals are exhausted, and your own spirit is stretched to its breaking point. And then, your guide points to the horizon. At first, you see nothing, but then you see it. Not a green oasis, but a line of dark, man-made shapes, shimmering in the distance. It is a watchtower. You have reached the outer edge of the Chinese sphere of influence. You have reached the Jade Gate, the frontier of the Tang Empire. A few more days of travel, and you finally arrive at the great oasis of Dunhuang. The relief is so profound it feels like a physical blow. You have crossed the Sea of Death, and you have survived. Dunhuang is a miracle, a city of bustling streets, green fields, and, most importantly, abundant, life-giving water. All of it existing in a state of permanent defiance to the desert that surrounds it. It is a major military garrison, a thriving centre of trade, and a deeply important centre of Buddhist faith. Its nearby cliffs honeycombed with the magnificent Mogao Caves, the caves of the 1,000 Buddhas. But your journey is not over. You have not yet reached your final market. And before you can proceed, or even trade here, you must navigate a new, and in some ways, more formidable obstacle than the desert, the Chinese bureaucracy. You and your caravan are held in a special compound outside the main city gates. Imperial officials, in their fine silk robes, arrive to inspect your cargo. Every single item must be declared, its value assessed. You must pay taxes. You must present your letter of passage from the Caliph's court. The process is slow, formal, and deeply intimidating. These are the gatekeepers of the wealthiest and most powerful empire on earth, and they know it. You must be patient. You must be respectful. You must offer the appropriate gifts to the right officials to smooth the way. It is a delicate and expensive dance of diplomacy and bribery. After several days of this bureaucratic wrangling, you are finally granted permission to trade. You will not be travelling the final 1,000 miles to the great Tang capital at Chang'an. That is a journey for another merchant, another caravan. Your journey ends here, at the great market of Dunhuang. And the trade here is not the chaotic, haggling affair of a Persian bazaar. It is a highly controlled, state-supervised process. You are not selling your goods to individual shopkeepers. You are selling them to official agents of the imperial court, or to the representatives of powerful state-sanctioned merchant guilds. You unload your precious cargo of Syrian glass, of Persian metalwork, of jade from Khotan. The Chinese merchants inspect your goods with a cool, appraising eye. They are connoisseurs of the highest order. The negotiations are formal, conducted through interpreters. There is little room for haggling. The prices are set by the guilds. You do well. The goods of the West are in high demand. Their exoticism a mark of status for the Tang elite. You sell your entire cargo, and you are paid in heavy strings of Chinese copper coins and in bolts of the most precious, most sought-after commodity in the entire world. You are paid in silk, bolts of it. It is so tightly woven it feels like water in your hands. It is dyed in colours you have never seen before, and embroidered with magnificent dragons and phoenixes. This is the treasure you have risked everything for. This lightweight, easily transportable, and astronomically valuable material is the reason this entire brutal network of trade exists. You carefully pack your new fortune, your heart a mixture of elation at your success and a deep, cold dread at the thought of the journey that now lies ahead of you, because your work is only half done. Now, you have to get it home. You spend a few weeks in Dunhuang, resting and preparing for the return journey. You join a new caravan, this one heading west. Your status is different now. You're no longer just another merchant. You are a man of wealth. Your camel's now laden with a fortune in silk. This makes you a target. You hire extra guards for the journey home. The fear of bandits is now a constant gnawing presence in your mind. The journey back is a mirror image of the one that brought you here. The same desert, the same mountains, the same hardships. But it feels different. Every day you survive, every mile you cover, you're bringing your fragile fortune closer to home. You are no longer just a risk taker. You are a protector, a guardian of the treasure you have earned. After nearly a year of travel, after surviving deserts and mountains, bandits and bureaucrats, you finally see the familiar sun-baked walls of your home city, Samarkand, on the horizon. You have done it. You have gambled everything, and you have won. You are a successful Silk Road merchant. You are a man who has walked the spine of the world and returned. The Silk Road was not a single golden highway. It was a fragile, brutal, and deeply human network of trust, greed, and almost unimaginable endurance, stretched across the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth. The merchants who travelled it were not swashbuckling adventurers. They were tough, pragmatic, and incredibly courageous businessmen who risked their lives on a year-long gamble. They were the living threads that stitched together the great civilizations of the East and the West. And the goods they so perilously carried were ultimately far less important than the ideas, the technologies, the religions, and the cultures that travelled with them. A silent, precious cargo carried in the hearts and minds of the men who braved the long and very brutal road. When we think of a druid, we probably picture a gentle, white-bearded mystic, maybe hugging a tree or peacefully watching the sunrise at Stonehenge. It's a modern image of a nature-loving wise man. But the brutal reality of the ancient Celtic Druids was something else entirely. They were the absolute masters of their society, judges who held the power of life and social death, priests who presided over human sacrifices, and living libraries who held the entire knowledge of their culture in their heads, all backed by a 20-year education that would make modern law school look like a weekend retreat. The year is 100 BC. You are a child of a Gallic tribe, living in a world of dense forests, warrior chieftains, and powerful gods. And you have just been chosen. You are about to begin the long, arduous, and secret journey to become a druid. Your story begins not in a sacred grove, but in the smoky, noisy reality of your family's roundhouse. You are the child of a farmer, not a great warrior, but from a young age you have been different. While other children play at fighting with wooden swords, you are the one who listens. You listen to the elders tell the long, rambling genealogies of your tribe. You don't just listen, you remember. You can recite the lineage of your chieftain back 10 generations. You can recall the exact wording of the agreement your father made with his neighbour over a stray pig last season. Your mind is a sponge for words, for patterns, for knowledge. One day, a visitor arrives in your village. He is a druid. You know this instantly. He's not dressed as a warrior, but he carries an authority that makes even your village chieftain bow his head slightly. He wears a simple, undyed woolen robe, and his long white beard gives his face a look of immense age and wisdom. but his eyes are what command your attention. They are sharp, intelligent, and they seem to see right through you. He has come to settle a dispute between two powerful families, but while he is here, he is also looking. He is scouting for talent. The elder of your village, knowing of your gift, presents you to him. The druid looks at you, his gaze intense. This is your entrance exam, and you didn't even know you were applying. He asks you questions. Not simple questions. He asks you to recite the story of the founding of your village. He asks you about the laws of hospitality. He poses a riddle about the seasons. You answer, your voice trembling at first, but then growing stronger as you pull the knowledge from the corners of your mind. You are not just reciting facts. You are showing him how you think, how you connect ideas. He listens impassive for what feels like an eternity. Then a slow nod. He speaks to your parents. It is a great honor, he tells them. Their child has the gift. He will be taken for the training. Your mother weeps quietly. Your father stands tall, filled with a mixture of immense pride and profound loss. You are 7 years old, and you are about to leave your family, your home, your entire world, forever. It is a great honor, but it is also a kind of death. The child you were is about to be erased so that a druid can be built in his place. You travel with the old druid for many days, deeper into the forest than you have ever been before. You eventually arrive at a place that feels different, a place where the air itself is hushed and heavy with age. This is the Nemeton, the sacred grove, and it will be your school, your university, for the next 20 years of your life. It is not a grand building. It is a clearing in an ancient oak forest. The trees so old their branches form a living roof. In the centre stands a circle of moss-covered stones. This is your classroom. There are other students here, youths and young adults of all ages, all chosen as you were. Their faces are serious, their focus absolute. And you soon learn why. Your education begins immediately, and it is a brutal, relentless exercise in memorization. There are no books. There is no writing. To be a druid is to be a living book. Writing is considered a crutch, a way of weakening the mind and the sacred power of the spoken word. All the knowledge of your people, their laws, their history, their science, their religion, is contained in thousands upon thousands of poetic verses, and you must learn them all. Your first years are spent simply listening and reciting. A master druid chants a series of verses, his voice a hypnotic rhythmic drone. You and the other novices repeat them, again and again and again, for hours, for days, for months. You chant the genealogies of every noble family. You chant the great epic poems of heroes and gods. You chant the precise boundaries of every tribe's lands. The sheer volume of information is staggering. It feels like trying to drink a river. Failure is not an option. A misremembered verse is not just a mistake. It is a corruption of sacred knowledge. The discipline is severe. Your mind is being forged into a tool, a vessel capable of holding a nation's entire intellectual inheritance. It is a grueling, exhausting process. At night, you fall onto your straw pallet, your head swimming with words, the verses echoing in your dreams. It's the most demanding education system imaginable. Forget finals week. This is a final 2 decades. You are not just learning facts. You are becoming the facts. You are becoming the collective memory of your people. After several years of foundational memorization, your training begins to specialize. You have shown an aptitude for logic and reason, so you are guided towards the study of law. You learn that to the Celtic peoples, law is not a set of rules imposed by a king. It is a sacred, intricate web of customs and obligations that maintains the balance of the entire community. It is a Druid's primary function to be the master of this web. The lore verses you now memorize are incredibly complex, covering every conceivable aspect of life. You learn the laws of contract, the precise verbal formulas required to make a binding agreement. You learn the intricate rules of inheritance. Most importantly, you learn the honor price. In your society, every person, from the highest chieftain to the lowliest farmer, has a specific monetary value assigned to them and to their body parts. An insult to a warrior is worth a certain number of cows. The loss of an eye in a drunken brawl has a specific price in silver. A murder can be settled by paying the correct man price to the victim's family. It is your job to know every single one of these values. Your master holds mock trials in the sacred grove. He presents a complex case. Two farmers claim ownership of the same prize bull. One says he bought it, the other says it was stolen. There are no written receipts, no documents. There are only words and witnesses. You and the other students must act as the judges. You listen to the arguments. You question the witnesses, watching for any hesitation, any sign of a false oath. Then, you must debate the case, quoting the specific law verses from your memory that apply to the situation. The goal is not to punish, but to restore harmony. Justice is about finding the right payment, the correct settlement that will satisfy both parties and prevent the dispute from escalating into a blood feud. It is a delicate, high-stakes balancing act. You learn that a Druid's judgment is the glue that holds your volatile, honor-bound society together. The law is not an abstract concept. It is a powerful, practical tool for maintaining peace, and soon you will be the one wielding it. Your education expands beyond the laws of men to encompass the laws of the natural world. In your society, there is no separation between law, science, and religion. It is all one great system of knowledge, and a Druid must be a master of it all. You are trained to be a natural philosopher, the scientist of your people. You begin to study the sky. Without telescopes, without complex instruments, you learn to track the movements of the sun, the moon, and the visible planets. You spend countless nights lying on your back in the sacred grove, observing the slow, majestic dance of the constellations. Your master teaches you how to identify the key turning points of the year, the solstices and the equinoxes. You learn how to predict the phases of the moon with perfect accuracy. This is not an idle intellectual exercise. This knowledge is of immense practical importance. It is you, the Druid, who will maintain the calendar. It is you who will tell the people when to plant their crops, when to harvest, and when to hold the great seasonal festivals. Your astronomical knowledge governs the rhythm of life for the entire tribe. You also become a master of the living earth. You are trained in medicine and botany. You learn to identify hundreds of different plants. You learn which roots can be ground into a poultice to heal a warrior's wound, which leaves can be brewed into a tea to calm a fever, and which berries are a deadly poison. You learn the sacred properties of the trees, especially the oak, which is the most powerful and revered of all. One day, your master takes you deep into the forest to perform the most famous of your rituals. You find a mighty oak tree upon which a clump of mistletoe is growing. He explains that the mistletoe, which grows between the earth and the sky without touching the ground, is a plant of immense spiritual power. The ceremony must be performed on the 6th night of the new moon, the most auspicious time. 2 white bulls that have never been yoked are brought to the tree. The master, dressed in white robes, climbs the oak and cuts the mistletoe with a golden sickle, catching it in a white cloak so it never touches the earth. Then the bulls are sacrificed. You realize that this is not superstition. It is an act of applied science and theology, a ceremony that perfectly combines astronomical timing, botanical knowledge, and religious ritual into one powerful unified act. Having mastered the laws of men and the laws of nature, you are now ready to approach the deepest, most secret part of your education, the laws of the gods. You are initiated into the mysteries of Druidic theology. It is a complex, profound, and often terrifying worldview. You learn that your world is just one of a trinity of realities. There is the world of the living, the world of the ancestors, and the other world, a magical parallel dimension inhabited by the gods and spirits, a place where time moves differently. You learn the great stories, the secret genealogies of the gods. You learn of Tyrannus, the thunder god, whose symbol is the wheel, and whose voice you hear in the summer storms. You learn of Tutates, the fierce protector of your specific tribe, who demands loyalty and courage. And you learn of Isus, the mysterious god of the forests and of journeys, a deity both revered and feared. These are not distant gods in some far-off heaven. They are active, powerful forces who walk in the mists of the other world and regularly interfere in the lives of mortals. The most fundamental doctrine you learn is the immortality of the soul. Your masters teach you that death is not an end, but merely a transition. The soul, they explain, is indestructible. After a person dies, their soul passes into the other world, and after a certain period of time, it will be reborn into a new body. This belief, you are taught, is the source of your people's legendary courage in battle. A warrior who does not fear death is the most dangerous warrior of all. It is your job, as a druid, to reinforce this belief, to perform the funeral rites that ensure the soul's safe passage. But the most important and dangerous knowledge you acquire is the understanding of the cosmic balance. The gods, you learn, are not always benevolent. They require respect. They demand tribute. The relationship between the human world and the divine world is a transaction, a delicate pact. And the foundation of this pact is the act of sacrifice. It is the way that humans give energy back to the gods to maintain the order of the universe and ensure their continued goodwill. You learn the complex rituals, the specific offerings required by each god, and the proper times to perform them. And you learn that sometimes, to avert a great disaster, the greatest of all sacrifices is required. After 20 long years, your education is complete. You have survived the grueling memorization, the intense study, the profound spiritual initiations. You are no longer a novice. You are a druid. You leave the sacred grove, your home for 2 decades, and are assigned to a tribe, perhaps the very tribe of your birth. You return not as a farmer's son, but as a figure of almost supernatural authority. You are the judge, the priest, the doctor, the scientist, and the advisor. You are the intellectual heart of your community. Soon your power is put to the test. A dispute has broken out between 2 powerful warrior families over the inheritance of a herd of cattle. Tempers are frayed. Insults have been traded. The situation is on the verge of exploding into a blood feud that could tear the tribe apart. The chieftain, unable to resolve it himself, summons you. This is your first real case. You convene the court not in a building, but in the open air, at a sacred circle of stones. The entire tribe gathers to watch. You sit on a carved wooden chair, your face impassive, as the heads of the 2 families present their cases. They shout, they posture, they call on their ancestors as witnesses. You listen. your mind sifting through the emotional arguments, searching for the facts. When they are finished, you rise. A hush falls over the crowd. You begin to speak, your voice calm but filled with an unshakable authority. You do not offer your opinion. You recite the law. You chant the ancient verses from memory, the ones that deal with exactly this type of inheritance dispute. Your judgment is swift and clear. The herd is to be divided according to the ancient laws. One family has a stronger claim, but the other is also entitled to a share. You set the exact number of cattle for each. Your word is absolute. There is no appeal. To defy you is to defy the law, the ancestors, and the gods themselves. You then add a final, chilling warning. If either family continues the dispute, you will excommunicate them. This is your ultimate weapon. To be excommunicated means to be cast out from the sacrifices. It is a social and spiritual death sentence. No one in the tribe is allowed to speak to them, trade with them, or help them in any way. They become ghosts, shunned by all. The two warriors look at you, their anger replaced by fear and respect. They accept your judgment. A feud has been averted. The balance has been restored. Your role as a judge gives you power over the people, but your role as an advisor gives you power over the king. In your society, the chieftain or king is the leader in war, but he is not an absolute monarch. He cannot make any significant decision without first consulting his druid. You are his conscience, his strategist, and his connection to the will of the gods. Before he decides to go to war with a neighboring tribe, he comes to you. Before he forges an alliance, he comes to you. Your hut, a simple dwelling near the chieftain's great hall, is the true center of power in the tribe. The chieftain comes to you one evening, his face grim. A rival tribe has been raiding your borders, stealing cattle and killing your warriors. He wants to retaliate, to lead a war party into their lands. But he cannot act on his anger alone. He needs a sign. He needs to know if the gods will favor his venture. It is your duty to perform the divination. You lead him to the sacred grove. The night is dark, with only the stars and a single sacred bonfire for light. You begin the ritual. You might call upon the birds, casting a handful of grain on the ground and interpreting the patterns in which they land to eat. Or you might perform a more gruesome divination, sacrificing an animal, perhaps a white bull, and reading the future in the patterns of its entrails or the way its blood soaks into the earth. You are a scientist of the sacred, looking for patterns, for omens that will reveal the hidden currents of fate. Tonight, you choose to read the smoke. You cast sacred herbs onto the fire and watch the thick aromatic smoke billow into the night sky. You enter a light trance, your mind open, observing the shapes, the direction, the way it coils and twists. The chieftain waits in tense silence. Finally, you speak. The smoke, you tell him, rises straight and strong, but then twists to the east, the direction of the enemy. The signs are favourable for a swift, direct attack, but the twist warns of a trick, an ambush. You advise him on the path to take, the time to strike. You are not just a priest, you are a military intelligence officer, and your intelligence comes directly from the gods. The chieftain nods, his course now clear. The fate of the tribe, the lives of its warriors, rests on the accuracy of your reading of the smoke. There are times when the balance between the human world and the other world is so badly broken that ordinary sacrifices are not enough. A great crisis has befallen your people. A blight has withered the crops in the field. A terrible plague is sweeping through the villages, killing children and elders alike. The people are terrified. They believe a powerful god has been deeply offended. A great and terrible price must be paid to restore order. The chieftain and the council of elders come to you. The decision has been made. A human sacrifice is required. This is the darkest and most awesome of your duties. This is not an act of murder or cruelty. In your worldview, it is a grim, sacred, and necessary transaction. It is the ultimate gift, a way of feeding the very fabric of the cosmos with the most potent life force available. It is your job as the High Priest to oversee this terrifying ritual. The victim may be a captive taken in war, a criminal condemned for a terrible crime, or, in the most desperate of times, even a volunteer from the tribe. On the day of the great festival, the entire tribe gathers at the Nematon. The atmosphere is not one of celebration, but of profound, fearful solemnity. Roman writers would later speak of a horrifying effigy, a giant man woven from wicker and wood. The victim, or victims, are placed inside this structure. As the sun sets, you begin the long, chanting prayers. You are the intermediary, the one who must explain the necessity of this act to the gods and consecrate the offering. Then, the wicker man is set alight. You do not watch this with glee. You watch with the focused intensity of a surgeon performing a life or death operation. You are releasing the victim's soul, sending its powerful spiritual energy directly to the other world as a plea for mercy and a payment to restore the balance. It is a horrifying, brutal, and in the mind of your people, absolutely essential act. You are the doctor for your society's soul, and sometimes the medicine is a terrible poison. You are the guardian of your people, and your first duty is to their survival, no matter the cost. For centuries, your order has been the bedrock of Celtic society. Your knowledge, held only in your perfectly trained memories, has been the force that binds the volatile warrior tribes together. But a shadow is falling from the south. A new power, unlike any you have faced before, is on the march. They are the Romans, and their general, a man named Julius Caesar, is not just a brilliant warrior. He is a shrewd and ruthless politician. He quickly realizes that the true strength of the Gauls is not in their chieftains or their warriors, but in you, in the Druids. You begin to hear stories from the tribes that have already fallen. The Romans do not respect your authority. They do not fear your gods. They see your secret gatherings, your political influence, and your unified cross-tribal network as a direct threat to their control. They see you as the leaders of a political and national resistance, and Caesar has given the order. You are to be exterminated. The sacred groves, once inviolable sanctuaries, are no longer safe. Roman legions begin to hunt you down. The brutal reality of your world is suddenly revealed. Your greatest strength, your oral tradition, is now your most profound weakness. Your entire culture, your laws, your history, your science. It all exists only in the minds of a few thousand men. It is not written down on scrolls or carved in stone. When a Roman soldier kills a Druid, he is not just killing a man. He is burning down a library. He is erasing a whole section of your people's soul. You see the fear in the eyes of your fellow Druids. For the first time, you are facing an enemy that you cannot defeat with knowledge or diplomacy. An enemy who does not respect the sacred balance. They are an existential threat, a force of absolute eradication. The world you have so carefully maintained for generations, the intricate web of knowledge that you spent 20 years of your life mastering, is now on the brink of being completely and utterly erased, destined to become nothing more than a faint, misunderstood memory. When we see a picture of a Japanese castle, like the magnificent Himeji, the White Heron, we see an image of serene, elegant beauty. It looks more like a fairy tale palace than a fortress. But that elegant facade hides a brutal reality. The Japanese castle was a masterpiece of military engineering, a brutally effective death trap, and a terrifying psychological weapon, all disguised as a work of art. The story of its construction is not one of quiet artistry, but of back-breaking labour, incredible craftsmanship, and the ruthless ambition of the great warlords who built them. We are travelling to a land of warring states, a nation on the verge of unification. The year is 1576. The chaotic Sengoku period is nearing its end, and you are a master stonemason, about to help build a new kind of fortress for a new kind of ruler. The summons has come from the most powerful and feared warlord in all of Japan, Oda Nobunaga. He is a man of vision, of ambition, and of terrifying ruthlessness. He is on the verge of unifying the country under his rule, and he requires a new kind of castle. He does not just want a military fortress, a simple fortification of wood and earthworks. He wants a symbol. He wants a magnificent, towering structure that will be a testament to his power, a palace in the sky that will awe his allies and intimidate his enemies into submission. He has chosen a strategic hill overlooking a lake, and he has summoned the greatest craftsmen in the land to build his vision, and you are one of them. You are a master stonemason, a member of the renowned Anoshu, a guild of masons famous for our unique and highly sought-after skills in castle construction. You and your guild have been hired for a handsome price to oversee the most critical and most difficult part of the entire project, the building of the great stone base, the Ishigaki. This is an immense honor, a chance to be part of the greatest building project of your generation. It is also a terrifying responsibility. The entire castle and the reputation of your guild will rest on the foundation you are about to create. You travel to the chosen site, a commanding hill that will soon be known as Azuchi. The land is beautiful, but your first task is not a practical one. It is a spiritual one. Before a single stone can be moved, the ground itself must be purified. You stand with the master carpenter and the samurai officials as a Shinto priest performs the groundbreaking ceremony, the Jichinsai. He chants ancient prayers, waving a sacred staff to cleanse the site of any evil spirits. He makes offerings of rice and sake to the local kami, the spirits of the land, to ask for their permission and their blessing. In this world, there is no separation between the work of men and the will of the gods. To build on this land without appeasing its ancient guardians would be to invite disaster. With the ground purified, the brutal physical reality of the work begins. And the first and most difficult phase of any Japanese castle construction is the creation of the Ishigaki, the massive sloping stone walls that form the castle's foundation. This is a project of almost unimaginable scale and labour. Oda Nobunaga has conscripted tens of thousands of peasants from the surrounding provinces to serve as the workforce. They are the muscle, the human engine, that will power this great undertaking. You watch as this great army of labourers begins its work. Thousands of men are sent to the nearby quarries to hew massive boulders of granite from the earth. Other teams are tasked with the monumental challenge of transporting these stones, some weighing many tons, to the construction site. They use a combination of brute force and simple but effective technology. The great stones are moved on wooden sledges, pulled over a temporary road of rolling logs by hundreds of men, their rhythmic, grunting chants a constant percussive soundtrack to the work. It is a dangerous, chaotic, and incredibly wasteful process, Ropes snap, men fall, stones are dropped and broken, but the supply is endless. You, as a master mason, are not involved in this crude brute force labour. Your job is far more refined and far more critical. You are the artist, the engineer, who will take this raw, chaotic supply of stone and transform it into a wall of immense strength and surprising beauty. Your primary tool is not a hammer, but your eye. You stand at the base of the hill, and you direct the placement of the stones. And the secret to the strength of a Japanese castle wall is that it is built without mortar. The stability of the wall comes entirely from the precise interlocking fit of the stones themselves. It is a massive, three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, and you are its chief architect. You direct the teams of labourers, using a simple fan as your baton of office, signalling where each great stone should be placed. You and your fellow master masons are famous for a particular technique that makes your walls both incredibly strong and incredibly difficult to climb. You build your walls with a subtle, elegant, concave curve, a slope that is gentle at the bottom and becomes progressively steeper towards the top. It is known as the Ogi Kobai, the fan slope. This beautiful curve is not just for aesthetic reasons. It is a masterpiece of defensive engineering. The gentle slope at the bottom makes it difficult for attackers to get close to the wall, while the steep, overhanging curve at the top makes it almost impossible to scale with ladders. The most difficult part is the corners. Here the stones must be cut and fitted with a watchmaker's precision. A special technique called sangazumi is used, where the cornerstones are laid in an alternating pattern of long and short sides, creating an immensely strong interlocking bond. You personally oversee the cutting of these crucial stones, your apprentices using their hammers and chisels to shape the hard granite, with a skill that has been passed down through your guild for generations. The result is a wall that is not just a barrier, but a sculpture, a thing of terrifying and undeniable beauty. With the great stone foundations complete, the samurai architects, under the direct supervision of the Lord himself, begin to lay out the internal structure of the castle. And you see that a Japanese castle is not a single monolithic building. It is a complex, multi-layered labyrinth, a series of defensive enclosures, or baileys, known as kuruwa. And the entire design is a masterclass in psychological warfare. The path for an attacker is deliberately made to be confusing, disorienting, and utterly lethal. You, as the master mason, helped construct the stone walls that will define this deadly maze. The main path leading to the central keep, the Tenshu, is not a straight line. It is a winding, spiralling route that constantly twists back on itself. It forces an attacking army into a long, narrow, and exposed procession. At every turn, there is a new gate, a new wall, a new killing field. The gates themselves are masterpieces of defensive architecture. Many of them are built in the Mashigata style. This is not a simple gate. It is a small, square courtyard, a box-like enclosure with a gate at the entrance, and a second, more heavily fortified gate at a 90-degree angle. An attacking force that breaks through the first gate finds itself trapped in this small, open courtyard, surrounded on all sides by high stone walls. The walls are peppered with a dizzying array of loopholes, or sama, of every shape and size. Rectangular ones for archers, circular and triangular ones for musketeers. The trapped attackers would be subjected to a devastating 360-degree crossfire, from which there is no escape. It is a death trap, pure and simple. As you work on these intricate and deadly structures, you have to admire the cold, calculating genius of it all. The entire castle is designed to demoralize an attacker, to make him feel lost, exposed, and constantly under threat. Every step he takes is a step deeper into a trap. With the stone foundations and the lower walls in place, a new army of craftsmen arrives. These are the Daiku, the master carpenters, whose skills are as revered as your own. Now, the great wooden skeleton of the castle's superstructure, the keeps and the gatehouses, will begin to rise. And it is a spectacle of a different, but equally impressive, kind of engineering. The primary building material is wood, huge, magnificent timbers of hinoki cypress, a wood that is both incredibly strong and resistant to rot. You watch as the carpenters begin their work, and the most remarkable thing is that a Japanese castle is built almost entirely without the use of nails. The entire massive multi-story structure is held together by a complex and incredibly sophisticated system of interlocking joinery. It is a form of architectural origami, where massive wooden beams and pillars are fitted together like the pieces of a puzzle. This technique gives the structure a surprising degree of flexibility, allowing it to withstand the frequent earthquakes that plague Japan. The raising of the main pillars of the great central keep, the Tenshu, is a major event. These are immense timbers, sometimes single massive trees that have been transported for hundreds of miles. They are hoisted into place with a complex system of ropes and pulleys, an act of incredible coordination and strength. As the great wooden framework rises, story by story, it seems to defy gravity. You, a man of stone, have a professional rivalry with these men of wood, but you cannot help but admire their genius. They are working with a different material, a different logic. Your work is about immense weight, about compression, about a static, unyielding strength. Their work is about tension, about balance, about a dynamic, flexible strength. And it is the combination of your two arts, the unyielding stone base and the flexible wooden superstructure, that gives the Japanese castle its unique and formidable character. As the wooden framework of the Tenshu is completed, the interior begins to take shape, and any notion you might have had that this is a place of comfort or luxury is quickly dispelled. The keep of a Japanese castle is not a palace. It is a dark, drafty, and highly functional military command post. The great, thick wooden pillars are left exposed. The floors are made of rough-hewn wooden planks, and the walls are not stone, but a surprisingly thin and fragile-looking mixture of bamboo lattice covered in plaster. The entire structure is, essentially, a fire trap. But the interior is filled with a host of deadly and ingenious defensive features. You see the carpenters building ishi otoshi, or stone-dropping windows, which are openings in the floor of the overhanging upper stories that allow the defenders to drop heavy stones or pour boiling water on any attackers who have managed to reach the base of the tower. You see the construction of concealed rooms, the mushakakushi, where a small group of warriors could hide, ready to ambush any enemy who broke through to the interior. One of the strangest and most brilliant features is the nightingale floor, the uguisubari. In the main corridor leading to the Lord's private chambers, the carpenters deliberately construct the floor in a special way. The floorboards are laid on a series of metal clamps and nails, so that when anyone walks on them, they make a distinctive bird-like chirping sound. It is a beautiful and highly effective burglar alarm, designed to make a stealthy assassination attempt almost impossible. Every detail of the interior is designed not for comfort, but for defense. The final stages of the construction are about creating the castle's iconic and highly deceptive outer appearance. The great wooden and bamboo lattice walls of the keep are now covered, inside and out, with a thick layer of plaster. This is not just for decoration. The plaster is a special fire-resistant mixture of lime, seaweed, and plant fibres. It is this brilliant white plaster that gives the great castles their name, the White Heron, and their appearance of delicate, elegant beauty. But this beauty is a functional one. It is a thin, protective skin, designed to make the highly flammable wooden structure more resistant to the fire arrows that were a common feature of siege warfare. Then comes the roof. The vast, complex, multi-tiered roof of the keep is a masterpiece in itself. Its wide, overhanging eaves are designed to keep the rain away from the plaster walls, and it is covered with thousands of heavy, gracefully curved ceramic tiles, or kawara. These tiles are not just for waterproofing. Their immense weight helps to stabilize the entire wooden structure, acting as a giant paperweight. Finally, the details are added. The ends of the roof ridges are decorated with fierce, fish-like ornaments called shachihoko, mythical creatures that were believed to protect the castle from fire. The family crest of your lord is added to the gable ends. The castle is now complete. It is a stunning and deeply deceptive object. It looks like an elegant, multi-layered pagoda, a place of peace and contemplation. But you, who have helped to build it, you know the truth. You know about the death traps, the hidden rooms, the killer floors. You know that this beautiful white heron is, in fact, a silent and very patient predator. After 3 long years of relentless back-breaking labour, the castle of Azuchi is complete. You and the thousands of other craftsmen and labourers gather at the base of the great hill to witness its official inauguration. You look up at what you have helped to create. It is unlike any castle that has ever been built before. It towers over the landscape, its 7-story keep a magnificent and deeply intimidating statement of power. It is not just a fortress, it is a palace, a command centre, and a work of art. Your lord, Oda Nobunaga, will live in the luxurious upper floors, his chambers decorated with the finest paintings and lacquerware. The lower floors are a fortress, a storehouse for weapons and supplies. The entire structure is a perfect embodiment of its creator, a man who is both a ruthless warrior and a sophisticated patron of the arts. You feel a profound sense of pride. Your hands, the hands of your guild, have built the great stone foundation upon which this new era of Japanese history will be built. You know that this castle is more than just a building. It is a message. It is a declaration to all the other rival warlords that the age of endless civil war is over. A new power has risen. A power that can command the labour of tens of thousands of men, that can mobilize the greatest craftsmen in the land, that can literally move mountains to create a symbol of its own unchallengeable authority. Your work here is done. You will move on to the next great project, to build a castle for Nobunaga's successor, and then his successor's successor. You are the builder of New Japan. The great castles of Japan are a profound and beautiful paradox. They are at once magnificent works of art and brutally efficient killing machines. Their serene, elegant beauty is a carefully constructed lie, a thin plaster skin that conceals a dark and deadly heart of traps and labyrinths. They were symbols of a warrior class, but they were built not by the samurai who commanded them, but by vast, conscripted armies of peasants and by the quiet, anonymous genius of the great guilds of master craftsmen. The Japanese castle stands as a silent, windswept testament to an age of both profound violence and breathtaking artistry, a beautiful predator waiting patiently on its hill. When we see the remains of a Roman aqueduct, like the magnificent Pont de Gare in France, we see a work of art. A graceful, almost delicate series of arches marching across a valley, a symbol of the elegance and genius of Rome. It looks like it was placed there by giants or by the gods. But the brutal reality is that these structures were not born of elegance. They were born of sweat, grit, and an almost unimaginable amount of back-breaking pre-industrial labour carried out by thousands of soldiers, slaves, and conscripts, whose names are lost to history. The year is 80 AD. You are a Roman military engineer in the province of Gaul, and you have just been given an impossible task: to build a river of stone that will carry millions of gallons of fresh water across 30 miles of hostile terrain. You're about to learn that building for eternity requires a brutal amount of work in the present. Your story begins not with a shovel, but with a scroll of parchment. You are an architectus, an engineer attached to the legions of Rome. You are a professional, a man who understands numbers, angles, and the unforgiving laws of physics. You have been summoned to the grand villa of the provincial governor in the thriving city of Nemausus, what we would one day call Nimes, in the south of France. The city is growing. It has a new amphitheatre, a bustling forum, and wealthy merchants building lavish homes. But it has a problem. It is thirsty. The governor, a man with powerful connections back in Rome, has decreed that Nemausus will have water, not just a trickle from local wells, but a constant massive supply of fresh, clean water. He wants fountains that splash in every public square, grand public baths for the citizens, and private running water for the villas of the elite. This is not just a public works project. It is a statement. An aqueduct is a physical manifestation of the power and wealth of Rome. It is a way of taming the landscape, of bending nature to the Roman will. It is a project of prestige, and its success or failure will echo all the way to the emperor. And you have been assigned to the team of engineers who will make it happen. You and your colleagues stand before a massive map of the region, spread out on a marble table. The problem is immense. You need to find a source, a spring of pure water, that is high enough and far enough away to provide the necessary volume and pressure. And then you must plot a course, a 30-mile-long path for a man-made river across a landscape of rolling hills, dense forests, and deep river valleys. The governor doesn't care about the details. He just wants his water. He dismisses you with a wave of his hand. As you leave the luxurious villa, the weight of the task begins to settle on you. You're not just building a channel for water. You're building a monument to Roman civilization, a project that is expected to last for centuries. There is no room for error. The eyes of the empire are upon you, and the first tool you will need is not a hammer, but your mind. The project begins in silence and sweat, with the most intellectually demanding and physically exhausting phase of all, the survey. You and a small team of surveyors and assistants leave the city and venture into the rugged countryside. Your goal is to plot a course for the aqueduct that maintains a precise, gentle, and almost constant downward slope. The grade must be steep enough for the water to flow, but not so steep that the current becomes a destructive torrent. The ideal gradient is a tiny, almost imperceptible drop of just a few inches for every 100 feet of length. To maintain this over 30 miles of uneven terrain is a monumental challenge. Your tools are shockingly simple, almost primitive. To lay out long, straight lines, you use a groma. It is a simple wooden cross with plumb bobs hanging from each of the four arms. By aligning the strings, you can sight a straight line across a remarkable distance. But your most important tool is the chorobates. It is essentially a 20-foot long plank of perfectly straight, seasoned wood, with legs at either end and a groove carved into its top. You set it up, and your assistants pour water into the groove. By observing the water level, you can determine a true horizontal with incredible accuracy. Forget lasers and GPS. Your most advanced piece of leveling equipment is a wooden beam with a puddle on it. For weeks, you and your team trek through the wilderness. You hack your way through thick undergrowth. You wade across streams. You climb steep hills. At each point, you set up the corrobates. You and your assistant lie on your bellies, squinting along the water level, sighting a distant staff held by another member of the team. You hammer stakes into the ground, marking the precise elevation. It is slow, tedious, and frustrating work. A gust of wind, a slight tremor in the ground, can throw off your readings. You are essentially connecting the dots, creating a giant 30-mile-long contour line across the landscape. You cannot always take the most direct route. You must follow the lay of the land, winding around hills, seeking the path of least resistance, all while maintaining that perfect, gentle slope. A single miscalculation, a single degree of error, could create a dip where the water would stagnate, or a rise it could not flow over, rendering the entire multi-year, multi-million sesterce project a complete failure. The fate of the aqueduct rests on your tired eyes and the simple, unforgiving truth of a line of water in a wooden trough. After months of painstaking work, the survey is complete. You have a 30-mile-long path marked out by thousands of wooden stakes. Now the intellectual phase is over, and the phase of brute force begins. To build this river of stone, you need an army. And an army is precisely what you are given. The governor has assigned an entire legion of Roman soldiers to the project. These are not just fighters. They are also the empire's master builders, a disciplined and skilled corps of engineers, masons, and carpenters. But the legionaries are not enough. They are supplemented by a vast workforce of local conscripts, Gallic farmers and labourers press-ganged into service, and a large contingent of slaves. This is the human engine that will power your project. Their muscle, their sweat, and sometimes their lives are the fuel that will make this aqueduct a reality. Their first task is one of the most dangerous and physically demanding of all, to work the quarries. You establish several quarries along the planned route, wherever you have found a good seam of the local limestone. The scene at the quarry is one of organised, industrial-scale chaos. The air is thick with white dust that clogs your throat and makes the sun a pale disk in the sky. The sound is a deafening symphony of iron on stone, the sharp clank of sledgehammers, the groan of ropes, and the shouting of the foreman. Your workforce descends into this white hell every day. The work is brutal. Men stripped to the waist, their bodies caked in dust and sweat, drive iron wedges into the rock face with heavy mallets, again and again, until a crack appears. They work in teams, their hammer blows rising and falling in a steady, powerful rhythm. When a massive block is finally split from the cliff, another team of masons moves in. With hammers and chisels, they begin the slow, painstaking process of shaping the rough block into a precisely cut voussoir for an arch, or a simple rectangular block for the channel walls. It is skilled work, performed under the harshest conditions. Accidents are frequent. A slipped wedge, a falling rock, can maim or kill a man in an instant. There is no compensation for the injured. A slave who is killed is simply a financial loss to be written off. A labourer is easily replaced. The quarry must produce. As you stand on the edge of the pit, watching the hundreds of men toiling below, you see the true cost of Roman grandeur. It is built not just with stone and concrete, but with the relentless, anonymous, and entirely expendable labour of thousands of human beings. You look at your survey map. The 30-mile route is a marvel of precision, but it is a path for water, which must flow gently downwards. The land, however, does not cooperate. In several places, a large hill stands directly in your path. Going around it would add miles to the route and disrupt the delicate gradient. The Roman answer is not to go around, but to go through. For the next several months, a significant portion of your workforce will be engaged in the dark, dangerous, and claustrophobic work of tunnelling. Most people imagine an aqueduct as a beautiful series of arches, but the reality is that up to 80% of its length is hidden from view, a simple covered channel laid in a trench just below the ground. And where a trench won't work, a tunnel is required. You stand at the base of the hill, your surveyors double-checking their alignment marks. The plan is to dig from both sides and meet in the middle. It is a testament to the supreme confidence of Roman engineering. The work is hellish. Teams of labourers, often slaves or prisoners, are sent into the dark. The primary tools are the pickaxe, the shovel, and raw human muscle. In the harder rock, you resort to a more aggressive technique, fire setting. A huge fire is built against the rock face at the end of the tunnel. After hours of intense heat, the workers douse the rock with cold water or vinegar. The sudden thermal shock cracks and shatters the stone, allowing it to be broken away with hammers and wedges. The tunnel fills with acrid smoke and steam, and the men work in suffocating conditions, their lungs filling with noxious fumes and rock dust. Progress is measured in inches per day. The tunnels are narrow, barely tall enough for a man to stand upright. The only light comes from smoky, foul-smelling oil lamps. The air is thin and stale. The greatest fear is a cave-in. The tunnels are braced with timber supports, but the geology is often unstable. A sudden collapse could bury a work crew in an instant. It is a dark, terrifying, and profoundly dangerous job, undertaken by the most disposable members of your workforce. Months pass. Finally, the day comes when the diggers in one of the tunnels hear a sound through the rock, the faint, rhythmic tapping of pickaxes from the other side. A cheer goes up in the darkness. They redouble their efforts, and soon a small hole appears. It is widened into an opening, and the two teams meet. You inspect their work. Their alignment is off by less than a foot. It is a moment of triumph, a victory of mathematics, and sheer, bloody-minded persistence over the unyielding stone. While your men are quarrying stone and digging tunnels, another team is engaged in what looks like a strange form of industrial cooking. They are preparing Rome's secret weapon, the technological marvel that makes these monumental structures possible. Opus caementitium, Roman concrete. This is not the simple cement mix we know today. It is a revolutionary material, a form of artificial rock that is incredibly strong, versatile, and, when made correctly, more durable than the natural stone it replaces. The process begins at the lime kilns. Huge quantities of limestone are burned for several days in intense fires, a process which chemically transforms the rock into quicklime, a highly caustic powder. This is dangerous work. The kilns are incredibly hot, and the lime itself can cause severe burns. The quicklime is then carefully slaked with water. The real magic, however, comes from the second ingredient, pozzolana. This is a special type of volcanic ash, sourced from deposits in Italy and sometimes Greece. When this ash is mixed with the slaked lime and water, it triggers a unique chemical reaction, creating a mortar of exceptional strength and water resistance. At the construction site, you have set up large mixing pits. Labourers, their skin covered in a grey paste, mix the mortar with shovels and hoes. They then add the final ingredient, the aggregate or commenta. This is simply rubble, fist-sized chunks of broken stone, brick or terracotta. This is what gives the concrete its bulk and strength. It is a brilliant way of using up the waste material from the quarries and building sites. The final product is a thick, heavy slurry. It is not poured like modern concrete. It is laid down in layers. Workers build a wooden framework, or shuttering, in the shape of the desired wall or pier. They then dump a layer of the concrete mix inside and use heavy wooden tampers to pack it down, forcing out air bubbles. They might then press larger stones into the mix before adding the next layer. The result is a structure that is not built, but cast. It is essentially a single, massive, monolithic piece of man-made conglomerate rock. You use it to build the foundations, to line the tunnels, and to form the solid, unyielding cores of the great piers that will soon rise from the valley floor. It is the bedrock of your engineering revolution. Your survey line, that imaginary thread of perfect gradient, has now reached the greatest obstacle on its 30-mile journey, the wide, deep valley of the Garden River. Going around it is impossible. Going through it with an inverted siphon is too complex and expensive for a project of this scale. The only answer is to go over it. You must build a bridge. Not just a bridge for people, but a massive 3-tiered structure of arches capable of carrying a river of water 160 feet above the valley floor. This will be the centerpiece of your aqueduct, a monumental statement of Roman engineering prowess, and it will be the most dangerous and difficult part of the entire construction. The work begins with the foundations for the great piers, but the real challenge is what comes next. To build the stone arches, you first have to build a complete, life-size wooden version of the bridge to support them. This is the scaffolding and the centering. A forest of high-quality timber is felled and brought to the site. Under the direction of your master carpenters, the legionaries and labourers begin to construct a vast, complex web of wooden supports rising from the riverbed. It is a monumental feat of engineering in its own right. The scaffolding must be strong enough to support the weight of hundreds of tons of stone and dozens of workers high above the valley. At the top of the piers, the carpenters construct the centering, perfectly curved wooden frames that will serve as the mould for the stone arches. Every angle must be perfect, every joint secure. A single weak point in this wooden skeleton could lead to a catastrophic collapse. The men who work on this structure are the bravest and most sure-footed of your crew. They clamber across the narrow beams, 100 feet in the air, with no safety ropes, no nets. A single misstep means a certain death on the rocks below. The wind howls through the valley, threatening to tear them from the precarious perches. It is terrifying high-stakes work. As you stand on the valley floor and look up at the intricate lattice of wood climbing into the sky, it looks almost as impressive as the stone bridge it is designed to create. It is a temporary masterpiece, a ghost bridge of wood that is the key to building an eternal one of stone. The immense wooden scaffolding now spans the valley. The curved centering for the arches is in place. The time has come to raise the bridge. This is the moment of truth for your masons and engineers. The stone blocks, quarried and shaped with painstaking precision, are brought to the base of the structure. Now you must lift them, some weighing over 5 tons, more than 100 feet into the air. To do this, you use Rome's most powerful lifting machine, the polyspastos, a massive, human-powered crane. The crane is a tall wooden mast, stabilized by guy ropes. Its genius lies in its system of pulleys. By rigging ropes through multiple pulley blocks, you can multiply the force exerted by the men turning the large winch. The winch itself is like a giant hamster wheel, a wooden treadmill large enough for several men to walk inside. their combined weight and strength turning the axle that slowly, painstakingly hauls the massive stone blocks into the air. It is a slow, groaning, nerve-wracking process. Every creak of the timber, every strain of the ropes, is a potential disaster. High up on the scaffolding, the master masons wait. They guide the huge blocks into place over the wooden centering. The stones are dry fit, placed together without any mortar. Their immense weight and the precision of their cutting is what will hold them together. Block by block, the two sides of an arch reach up towards each other. Finally, the last wedge-shaped stone, the keystone, is lowered into the gap at the very top. As it slides into place, a miracle of physics occurs. The forces of gravity, which have been trying to pull everything down, are now redirected outwards through the stones of the arch and down into the solid piers. The arch is now self-supporting, immensely strong. This process is repeated again and again for every arch on every one of the 3 tiers. It is a spectacle of precision, power, and raw courage. You watch from below, your heart in your throat, as the final keystone of the top tier is set. The bridge is complete, a perfect, powerful, and beautiful structure. Now, all that remains is to dismantle the massive wooden scaffolding that gave it birth, revealing the stone masterpiece to the world. After years of construction, the great stone skeleton is complete. The aqueduct, a 30-mile-long line of tunnels, trenches, and magnificent bridges, now snakes its way across the landscape. But the structure itself is useless. It is just a very long, very expensive stone wall. Now comes the final, and in some ways, most important stage of the construction, building the riverbed itself. You must create the perfectly smooth, waterproof channel that will actually carry the water. This channel is called the specus. The specus is a relatively small trough, perhaps 3 feet wide and 4 feet deep, that runs along the very top of the entire structure. Your workers, the masons and the concrete specialists, now walk the full length of the aqueduct, laying the final course of stones that will form the walls of the channel. It is meticulous, repetitive work. But the real secret to the aqueduct's longevity lies in the lining. To make the channel completely waterproof, you use a special type of Roman concrete called opus signinum. The recipe is similar to your structural concrete, but with one key difference. The aggregate is not stone, but crushed terracotta, old roof tiles, pottery shards, and bricks that have been pulverized into a fine powder and grit. When mixed with the lime and pozzolana, this terracotta dust creates a hydraulic cement of exceptional quality. It is dense, completely impervious to water, and has the added benefit of being slightly flexible, able to withstand minor shifts in the structure without cracking. Your workers apply this pinkish-red concrete in several layers to the floor and walls of the specus. They work it with wooden floats, making the surface as smooth as polished marble. Any roughness, any bumps or cracks could create turbulence that would slow the flow of water and allow sediment to build up, eventually clogging the channel. It is a finisher's art, a task of perfectionism on a massive scale. Finally, large stone slabs are placed over the top of the channel like a continuous lid. This is to keep the water clean and cool. It prevents leaves, dirt and animals from falling in, and it shades the water from the hot Gallic sun, which would encourage the growth of algae. After all this work, the river is now hidden from view once more, encased in its perfect man-made bed, ready to begin its long, silent journey to the city. The day has come. It is a day of celebration and profound anxiety. After nearly 5 years of surveying, quarrying, tunnelling and building, the aqueduct is finished. It stands as a silent, 30-mile-long monument to Roman will. The governor, along with all the local dignitaries, has travelled from Nemausus to the source of the spring, the Captatio, for the opening ceremony. A dam and a sluice gate have been built here to control the flow of water into the channel. The entire workforce, what is left of it, has also gathered. They are a rough, scarred and sunburned crowd, the anonymous builders of this masterpiece. You stand with the other engineers, your heart pounding. This is the ultimate test. All your calculations, all your measurements, all the back-breaking labour. It all comes down to this moment. Did you get the gradient right? Are there any leaks? Will the water flow? The governor makes a grand speech, praising the genius of Rome, and, of course, his own foresight. A priest performs a sacrifice to Neptune, the god of fresh water. Then, the governor gives the order. The legionary foreman shouts a command. A team of soldiers strains at the large winch, and the heavy wooden sluice gate is slowly lifted. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, with a gentle gurgle, the pure, clean water of the spring diverts from its natural course and flows into the dark mouth of the Specus. It begins its long journey. A profound silence falls over the crowd. Everyone is watching the stone channel, as if they can see the water moving within it. An hour passes, then two. The tension is almost unbearable. A series of riders has been stationed at high points along the route to signal the water's progress. Suddenly, a cry goes up from a distant hill. A rider is galloping towards you, waving a red flag. The water has passed the first checkpoint. A ripple of applause and relieved laughter goes through the crowd. Another rider comes, and then another. The man-made river is flowing perfectly, just as you designed it. The final test is in the city. The aqueduct terminates at a large distribution tank, the Castellum Aquae, from which pipes will lead to the fountains and baths. As the water arrives there, a great cheer erupts from the city, a roar that you can hear even miles away. The fountains of Nemausus are flowing. The project is a success. The governor will be praised. The engineers will be rewarded. But as you look at the aqueduct, a perfect line of stone against the sky, you also think of the countless hours of labour, the men who were crushed in the quarries, who suffocated in the tunnels, who fell from the great bridge. Their stories, their sacrifices, are invisible, washed away by the very water that now brings life to the city, the silent, brutal price of creating a wonder that will outlast the empire itself. When we hear the word Viking, we see a vision of a ferocious, axe-wielding warrior in a horned helmet, leaping from a longship to raid and plunder. It's an image of a people who lived a life of constant violent adventure. But the brutal and far more common reality is that the vast majority of Vikings were not full-time warriors. They were farmers. Their lives were a grueling, year-long battle, not against Saxon shield walls, but against the harsh, unforgiving landscape of Scandinavia. The axe in their hand was more likely to be used for chopping wood than for cleaving a skull. We are travelling to the cold, dramatic landscape of the north. The year is 900 AD. The place is a small farmstead nestled in a Norwegian fjord, and your life is governed not by a thirst for adventure, but by the slow, grinding rhythm of the seasons. The world outside is a kingdom of white and grey. It is the heart of winter, the wolf month. A thick blanket of snow covers your small sloping fields of barley and oats. The fjord, a great dark finger of the sea, is choked with ice. For months you and your family have been trapped in the smoky, fire-lit world of your longhouse. This is not a time of rest. It is a time of survival. A long, slow battle against the cold, the darkness, and the gnawing threat of hunger. Your home is a long, low building with a curved, ship-like roof, its walls made of timber and turf. And you do not live there alone. At one end of the long open hall is the living space for you, your wife, your children, and a few household slaves. At the other end, separated only by a simple wooden partition, is the byre, the winter home for your most precious possessions. Your 2 milk cows, a handful of sheep, and a pair of sturdy oxen. You live with your livestock under one roof. The body heat of the animals helps to warm the house, a clever piece of thermal engineering. The smell, however, is a less welcome feature. Your days are short, the nights are endlessly long. Your life is dictated by the central fire pit, the Langeld. It is the heart of your home, providing light, warmth, and a place to cook the monotonous winter meals of dried fish, salted meat, and a thick, sustaining porridge of barley. The smoke from the fire is supposed to escape through a hole in the thatched roof, but most of it seems to prefer lingering in the rafters, filling the longhouse with a perpetual, eye-stinging haze. This is a time of indoor work. You sit by the fire, carving a new handle for an axe, or mending the leather harnesses for the oxen. Your wife, Sigrid, and your daughters spend almost every waking hour at the great, upright, warp-weighted loom, their hands tirelessly weaving the coarse, durable woolen cloth known as vadmal, which is not just a source of your family's clothing, but also a form of currency. The slow, rhythmic thump-thump of the loom is the heartbeat of the longhouse. It is a season of profound, almost claustrophobic domesticity. The snow finally begins to melt. The days grow longer. A sense of restless energy, a kind of seasonal cabin fever, grips the longhouse. It is spring, and with the thaw comes an explosion of frantic and back-breaking work. The battle against nature resumes on all fronts. First, you must attend to the farmstead itself. The heavy winter snows have damaged the turf roof of the longhouse, and you must spend several days cutting new strips of sod and patching the leaks. The wattle and daub fences that enclose your small home field have crumbled and must be rebuilt. Then the real work begins. You must prepare the fields for planting. You and your eldest son take the 2 oxen and the heavy wooden plough, the ard, down to your small, terraced fields. The soil, newly freed from the snow, is rocky and stubborn. The ard is a simple, inefficient tool. It does not turn the soil over like a modern plough. It simply cuts a shallow furrow. You must guide it with all your strength, your hands gripping the wooden handles, your muscles straining to keep the iron-tipped share in the earth as the oxen pull. It is a slow, grueling, and deeply frustrating process. You must make multiple passes over the same small field, first in one direction and then in another, cross-ploughing to break up the soil. Your wife and younger children follow behind you, breaking up the larger clods of earth with wooden hoes, and picking out the endless supply of stones that the winter frosts have pushed to the surface. It is a task for the entire family. After days of this punishing labour, the fields are finally ready. You carefully sow your precious seeds of barley and oats, your hands scattering the potential for life and for survival into the dark, cold earth. You are a farmer, a carl, a free man who owns his own land. But you are also a Viking, and with the fields sown and the seas now free of ice, the call of the wider world is a powerful one. Farming in this land is a precarious existence. A single bad harvest, a sick cow, and your family could face starvation. Raiding, or going a Viking, is not a full-time profession. It is a high risk, high reward, and strictly seasonal business venture. It is a way for a young man to gain the wealth, the silver, and the prestige that he cannot hope to find in his own rocky fields. You have a younger brother, Olaf, who is not content with the slow, patient life of the farm. He joins the local chieftain's expedition. You watch as the longship is made ready. It is pulled from its long winter shed and loaded with supplies. Olaf, his eyes bright with a mixture of fear and excitement, sharpens his axe and polishes his round shield. He is trading the familiar tyranny of the seasons for the unknown tyranny of the sea. It is a gamble. If the raid is successful, he will return in the autumn with a share of the plunder. Silver arm rings, fine Frankish cloth, and perhaps even a slave or two to help on the farm. This influx of wealth could transform your family's fortunes. But the risks are immense. The sea is a hungry god. The lands to the west and south are full of well-armed men who are increasingly wise to the Viking way of war. Olaf may return a rich man, or he may not return at all. His body left in a muddy ditch in a foreign land, his soul, he hopes, feasting in the great halls of Valhalla. You, the elder brother, must stay behind. Your battle is here, on the land. Your job is to make sure there is a home and a harvest for him to return to. You have returned from a successful, if exhausting summer of fishing and trading along the coast. But your return home is not a peaceful one. Your neighbour, a grim, sour-faced man named Eric, is waiting for you. He claims that while you were away, your prize milk cow broke through a fence and trampled a significant portion of his hayfield, a field that is vital for the survival of his own livestock through the coming winter. He is demanding compensation. And in your society, a dispute between neighbours, if not handled carefully, can easily escalate into a violent, multi-generational blood feud. But you are not just a land of lawless violence. You have the law, and the place where the law is made, and where disputes are settled, is the thing. You and Eric agreed to take your case to the local assembly. A few weeks later, you and all the other free farmers of your district gather at the Thingstead, a sacred, open-air site, often marked by a great tree or a circle of stones. This is not just a courtroom. It is a political assembly, a social gathering, and a marketplace all in one. The proceedings are presided over by a law speaker, a man who has memorized the entire unwritten legal code of your people. You and Eric both present your case. There are no lawyers. You must speak for yourself. You argue that your fence was strong, and that Eric's field was poorly protected. Eric argues that your cow is a known menace, and that you are responsible for its actions. It is a battle of words, of reputation, of honour. After you have both spoken, the assembly of your peers, the other farmers, discusses the matter. They are the jury. They are guided by the law speaker, but the final judgment is theirs. After much debate, a verdict is reached. Your fence was indeed old, and your cow was indeed trespassing. You are found to be at fault. You are ordered to pay Eric a Vergild a compensation of a barrel of salted fish and a bolt of your wife's finest woolen cloth. It is a fair judgment. You accept it, and you and Eric shake hands, the matter now formally settled. You have avoided a blood feud. You have participated in the raw, grassroots democracy of your people. It is a system that is noisy, argumentative, and deeply personal, but it is the system that holds your violent, honour-bound society together. As the late summer sun hangs low in the sky, the most critical and time-sensitive task of the entire year begins. It is time for the haymaking. The small, rocky fields of your farmstead do not produce enough fodder to keep your livestock alive through the 6 long months of winter. The only source for this life-giving winter food is the Seta, the high mountain pastures, miles above your fjordside home. The entire family, along with a few hired hands, makes the long, arduous trek up into the mountains. Here, in the high, remote valleys, the summer grass is lush and green. For the next 2 weeks, this will be your world. You live in a small, rustic mountain hut, and you work from the moment the sun rises until it dips below the jagged peaks. The work is a frantic race against the weather. You must cut, dry, and transport the entire winter supply of hay before the first autumn rains come and ruin it. You and your sons take up your long iron scythes. The work of scything is a graceful, rhythmic, and deeply demanding art. You move in a line across the meadow, your blades whispering through the tall grass, laying it down in neat, even rows. It is a full body movement, a dance that leaves every muscle in your back and shoulders screaming in protest by the end of the day. As you cut, your wife and daughters follow behind with wooden rakes, spreading the cut grass out to dry in the sun. After a few days, when the hay is dry and fragrant, the immense task of transporting it begins. There are no wheeled carts that can navigate these steep mountain paths. The hay must be carried down on your backs. You pack the hay into massive, tightly bound bundles, and you begin the long, treacherous journey back down to the fjord. The bundles are so large that you are almost completely hidden within them, a walking haystack, your feet carefully picking their way down the rocky trail. It is a slow and dangerously top-heavy procession. The hay is stored in a special timber-built barn near your longhouse, slowly filling the building with the sweet, dry smell of stored sunshine. The autumn air is crisp. The leaves of the birch trees have turned a brilliant, fiery yellow. The grain in your fields is ripe. It is time for the harvest. Once again, it is a task for the entire family. You and your wife and children work from dawn till dusk, moving through your small fields of barley and oats, cutting the stalks with sharp, curved iron sickles. It is a race against time to get the grain in before a storm can flatten it or the birds can eat it. The cut grain is tied into sheaves and left to dry in the field before being carried back to the farmstead to be threshed and stored in a special raised storehouse to protect it from rats and moisture. When the last sheaf of grain is safely stored away, a profound sense of relief settles over the household. You have done it. You have gathered enough food to see you through the coming darkness. You have survived another year, and now it is time to celebrate. A great harvest feast is held at the chieftain's long hall, and all the farmers of the district are invited. It is a rare and precious moment of communal joy and abundance. The hall is crowded, smoky, and loud. Great trestle tables are laden with food, roasted pork, boiled mutton, great wheels of cheese, and fresh-baked bread. And there is ale, vast quantities of it, brewed from the newly harvested barley. As the evening wears on and the ale flows freely, a skald, a travelling poet and storyteller, stands in the centre of the hall. He begins to chant the great epic poems of your people, the stories of the gods, of Odin and Thor, and the tales of the great legendary heroes of the past. His voice, accompanied by the gentle strumming of a harp, fills the hall. You sit, a simple farmer, and you listen to the stories that give your hard, laborious life meaning, that connect you to the glorious and often bloody deeds of your ancestors. The harvest is in. Your belly is full. And for this one night, you are a part of a saga. As the days grow shorter and the first sharp frosts of autumn bite the air, a grimmer but equally necessary task must be performed: The hay you so painstakingly harvested is a precious resource, and it is not enough to feed all of your animals through the long winter. A hard choice must be made. You must decide which animals will live and which will die. You walk through your small herd of sheep and cattle. You choose the oldest cow, the weakest sheep, the runt of the last litter of pigs. These will be slaughtered. You will keep only the strongest breeding animals, the ones that will be the foundation of next year's herd. The slaughter is a bloody but not a wasteful affair. Every single part of the animal will be used. The meat is the most important part, and now begins the great work of preservation. You and your wife spend the next week in a flurry of activity, preparing the meat to last through the winter. Some of it is salted, packed in great barrels of precious salt that you have traded for. Some of it is smoked, hung in the high, smoky rafters of the longhouse. Some of it is simply hung to dry in the cold, dry autumn air, until it becomes a hard, durable jerky. The hides will be tanned to make leather for shoes and harnesses. The bones will be used to make tools, needles, combs, and knife handles. The fat will be rendered down into tallow to be used for making candles and lamps to light the long winter nights. It is a grim but deeply pragmatic accounting. You are making a calculated and very necessary investment in the future, trading the lives of some of your animals now for the survival of your family through the coming darkness. The men's work on the farm, the ploughing, the raiding, the harvesting, is intensely seasonal. It is a series of frantic bursts of activity, followed by long periods of waiting. But the women's work, the work of your wife Sigrid, is a constant, year-round and never-ending cycle of labour. It is the steady, rhythmic engine that keeps the entire farmstead alive. While you are in the fields or at sea, her work is centred on the longhouse, and it is every bit as demanding as your own. Every single day she must grind the grain. This is one of the most physically punishing tasks on the farm. She kneels for hours before the quern, a large, heavy, rotary handmill made of two massive stones, and she grinds the day's supply of barley or oats into flour. The work is repetitive, and it wears down the body. The skeletons of Viking age women often show severe arthritis in their knees and backs from a lifetime spent at the quern. From this flour she bakes the flatbread, the unleavened cracker-like bread that is a staple of your diet. She milks the cows, and she churns the milk into butter and cheese. She tends the small herb and vegetable garden near the house, the kålgård, which provides the vital greens for your family's pottage. But her greatest and most time-consuming task is the creation of cloth. The entire process, from the back of a sheep to the clothes on your back, is her domain. She shears the sheep in the spring. She washes the greasy wool in the stream. She cards it, combing the fibres to align them. She spins it into thread, using a simple drop spindle. And finally, she weaves it into cloth on the great warp-weighted loom that stands in the corner of the longhouse. It is an incredibly slow and painstaking process. To produce enough cloth for a single tunic can take weeks of work. It is a constant and vital contribution to the household economy. You are the farmer, but she is the bedrock. The first snow of winter begins to fall, soft, silent, and inexorable. It is a signal. The brief, frantic season of light and work is over. The time of darkness and waiting has returned. You perform the final, crucial task of the year. You bring your remaining precious livestock, your two best cows, the oxen, the breeding ewes, in from the cold pastures and into their winter quarters, the byre, at the far end of your longhouse. You seal the great wooden door. The world outside is now a place of hostile cold. The world inside is your small, smoky, fire-lit ark. The great cycle is complete. You have ploughed, you have planted, you have harvested. You have fought against the stubborn soil, the fickle weather, and the ever-present threat of hunger. You look at the fruits of your long year of labour. The storehouse is full of grain. The rafters of the longhouse are hung with smoked and dried meat. The hay barn is packed to the roof with the sweet-smelling fodder that will keep your animals alive. You have done enough. You have survived. You sit by the long fire in the centre of your hall, your family around you. The lowing of the cows, a comforting, familiar sound from the other end of the building. The wind howls outside, but in here, you are safe. You are a Viking. But your saga is not one of raiding and plunder. It is a quieter and in many ways a more heroic saga. It is the story of the land, of the seasons, of the relentless and deeply human struggle for survival. The iconic Viking warrior, the man who terrified Europe, was not born on the deck of a longship. He was born here, on the small, rocky and unforgiving farms of the north. His life was not a grand saga of constant adventure, but a grueling, year-long battle against a harsh and demanding land. The axe in his hand was as often used for clearing a forest as for cleaving a helmet. The true and largely untold story of the Viking Age is not written in the blood of their enemies, but in the sweat of the farmer, in the smoke of the longhouse fire, and in the quiet, stubborn, and profound endurance of the men and women who carved a life from the cold, hard edge of the world.